Welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I just discovered as we were getting ready to go live, there's this little background music thing. I am here with Matt Schuler. We're going to talk about how to take your senior living dining program and turn it into a profit center. So let me turn off my music and run our intro. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. It's doing some weird sound thing on that. I don't know what that was about, but anyway, Matt, welcome. I'm going to do a short introduction, then I'll have you talk. I've met Matt at the first Senior Living Dining Association meeting. He was a compelling presenter. That was like pre-COVID. We can hardly remember it. And then again, he spoke at the Dining Association in Orlando, I guess maybe 3 months ago. And so one of the most creative, thoughtful dining food service people. And we're going to talk about dining. So why don't you give us a little background about who you are and what you do and what your passion is?
Yeah, well, Steve, my passion is food. Ultimately, that's what I've been doing my whole life. After spending many years in the back of the house, well, first culinary school, back of the house, loving food, did a few different sectors, started to work for a dealer, started dabbling in equipment and getting into design, and then started to really, my niche started becoming healthcare and senior living, and then Scopus Hospitality Group picked me up about 6 years ago. And since then, we've, completed hundreds of projects. We have hundreds in design currently right now across the country. We are a full service design firm that tackles everything from interior design to kitchen design to programs, operational help, operational consulting, just making sure that the senior living sector has someone they can go to who is on their side and can help them programmatically with the design, as opposed to years ago where we used to kind of lean on architects and the design world who may or may not have ever worked in the industry. Now we want to bring some of our experiences to the forefront.
So you're designing both the, I hope I get the terminology right, but you're designing both the front of the house and the back of the house experiences.
That is true. I mean, and it all starts with program. It all starts with the vision. So, for those individuals out there that are thinking about master planning, they're thinking about changing or repositioning, or it's a totally new community, it's got to start with that program and it's got to start with that vision. And we got to make sure that we have enough space. We got to make sure that the flow of food is appropriately going throughout the building in a manner that we want. And then staff efficiencies right now. I mean, it's huge. We're all dealing with the labor issues, but ultimately, are we building environments that keep them happy and allow them to come into work every day and be successful in that position? That is the key.
Cool. So let's talk, dining. So overall, people are always the single highest expense in every senior living community. And within a department, typically dining is the most expensive because you've got heavy people costs and you've got food costs and supplies and all that kind of stuff, right? So, I mean, you're the expert on this. But this idea of turning it into a profit center is pretty interesting. So let's hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, long are the days where, we want what I used to call a feeder room. Everybody lined up at 4:30. They got their lunch or dinner. Typically, lunch was the big meal a day. It was one venue. It was large. It was called the blah, blah, blah room or the dining room or the main dining room, and that's not what the boomers want. That's not what the younger generation wants. That's not what the boomers' kids want and my kids want when they go to see grandma and grandpa in one of these communities. So we have to start mimicking what the hospitality industry is doing and bringing to us as a whole. And how can we bring those experiences and those venues inside the community, giving those residents choices of when they want to eat, how they want to eat, what they want to eat, Are they wanting a bowl of mussels and a glass of wine at 7:30 p.m. at the bar? Yes. Are they wanting to be able to go get a latte with triple skim, double pump of whatever? Yes. So we kind of have to bring those same experiences in and allow them to spend that revenue inside the community. We know they're going outside the community already, and we know they're not moving into the communities because they're not offering these types of experiences. So we want to try to capture as much of those aspects as needed. Just even grab and go, like little takeout areas where I don't want to have to get in my car, go to the store to get a half a dozen eggs and some yogurt. Why can't I get that in the community? Is there a spot for me to spend my money inside that community? So like you said, we can have revenue centers as opposed to revenue losers, which they used to be a long time ago.
Okay, so this sounds really, I'm thinking if I'm sitting here as a senior living operator, I'm thinking this sounds really, really terrific. If I'm going to go build that new building over there, but my problem is I've got a bunch of buildings that are already here, and I've got one dining room and maybe one other space. Am I just stuck until I go build my next building, or what do I do with that?
You are not stuck, and that's where we come into play. That's where we work with the architectural teams, and we kind of say, hey, are there spaces that are underutilized within the organization? I'll give you a prime example. A lot of times a community will have a bar, all right? And that bar is a bar, and that bar opens up at 2 p.m. or whatever for happy hour, but the rest of the day it's just sitting there not being used. So you have dead space, and you have space that's not being activated. It's not promoting socialization. So what can we do to that same space? Or maybe we've taken a little bit of an office space next door to bring in that flexible concept. Maybe it is a coffee shop that transitions throughout the day. So in the evening time, it is that bar experience. Because once again, do you really need the coffee shop in the evening? So how can we utilize those spaces? Or maybe your dining rooms are oversized, and you're finding that the participation in that extremely large dining room is underutilized, and there might be spaces that we can use to break it up and add these different entities.
So one of the things I guess I want to actually talk about the dining room space a little bit, this is really dangerous because I'm not sure I have the expertise right. So you're going to have to guide me, and it's okay for you to say you got that completely wrong. But my experience is that when I'm touring senior living communities, if I'm not right in the middle of particularly lunch or dinner, there's this big, huge dining room that sort of nothing is happening. Is there a way to actually use that space more efficiently in those downtimes, or is that just part of the price you pay?
Well, it all comes down to, once again, making sure programmatically that the spaces are right size. So yeah, like before, we'd have a big dining room that seats 200 people, and it's probably not used for breakfast. It's probably used for lunch or dinner. Maybe it's half full, maybe it's not half full. So the idea of multiple venues and right sizing those venues so that the venues look full all day long, they are activated all day long, and maybe that main dining room, which was considered a formal service. I mean, there are communities out there. There might still be communities out there where you have to put the coat and jacket and tie on and go eat in the dining room. And that's not what most of the younger residents want. So we have to learn, instead of a 200-person formal service dining room, let's look at a full service restaurant venue and start right sizing it, because ultimately those very large dining rooms are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's not that we're getting rid of full service or formal service. It's just maybe now it's a 30-seat restaurant as opposed to the 250-seat, dining room.
And so can I do that if I've got an existing dining room? How do I use that to create multiple spaces?
Yeah, well, we want to look at where the kitchen is anchored. We also want to look at, are we able to break that space up? And maybe you've got a opportunity to break one half into that casual experience, and or I shouldn't even say half, 2/3 into that casual experience, that bistro, cafe, whatever we're going to call it. And then that other third is still left over for the full service venue. And that full service venue, we still like to keep close to the kitchen because that's our highest level of service, and we want that access there. And then a lot of people say, well, during these renovations, what do I do about feeding people in the meantime? Well, it's all about phasing. And if we can get you a kitchen that is self-sufficient first for a casual venue, then we can start working on the rest of the dining room.
So you have really one. You talked about this really cool idea that's just been sitting in my head. If you're doing a big redesign of kitchens, that you can do, that you can use after you've done it. Do you want to talk about that? You
Say
know
that
what I'm
again.
talking about?
Sorry, say it again.
The food trucks.
Oh yeah, all right, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I want you to talk about food trucks. This was one of the coolest things I loved out of your talk.
Listen, we all love food trucks. We all like going to festivals with food trucks. We all like going to, city events with food trucks, concerts with food trucks. And, we were working with a community in Florida that was going through repositioning. And one of these solutions, once again, was instead of spending, six figures on a temporary kitchen or a trailer or a food truck or something to still feed the residents and or staff, why not own the situation? Why not look at, hey, can we build a marketing and branding opportunity as well as another venue that travels throughout the CCRC or the community itself, but also now can highlight and market its services to the larger community of the city as a whole. And that food truck might go out to those events and start saying, hey, look at us, look how many dining venues we have. We are not what you think a nursing home is anymore. We are young, hip, and cool, and we have great food here as well.
So I'm going to ask you to let's design a food program. I come to you, I'm getting ready to build a new senior living community. It's sort of, it's better than middle market, but it's not high luxury. And I say, Matt, I want to design the best food service program that's ever existed in my marketplace, right? So, dream big with what that would look like.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with that visioning process. And for us, geographically, we're going to look at probably where this location is, what's around it. Then we're going to start looking at how many levels of care or what levels of care are within the organization. With that being said, when we're going to start looking at unit counts, and we're going to break the unit counts down, we're going to break the census down, and then we're going to say, hey, do you plan on offering some type of meal program? Now, the traditional one meal a day, it's not cutting it anymore, all right? Because we all know what they're going to use that for, dinner. Why? Because steak is much more, my perceived value of the steak is better than eggs, of course, for breakfast. So the traditional spend down is what we see, whether it's points, dollars, et cetera, and allows them to use that money throughout the campus. Then we say, okay, we have X amount in that program from a point standpoint. Let's right size and look at the venues, and typically it starts with that coffee shop or flexible environment, and that cafe and branding. This is a huge miss. And, Steve, I could probably talk for hours on this, but branding these venues from the beginning, because ultimately as a sales and marketing team, and I know I'm not a sales and marketing person, you have to start selling these ideas, these concepts, these venues, all the way down to the menus. Long are the days, like I said, are we using the term Rose Dining Room or, the main dining room? Let's build a brand identity for the organization from a food service standpoint and work with that. So if it is called the Reserve at 1812, and maybe 1812 is the year the community was founded or the founders founded it, whatever, we start building that relationship from that brand into the venues. Then we start right sizing it. So instead of the architect saying, hey, here's your box, stay in your box, we have to say, no, I have to feed 300 people's transactions a day. There are multiple levels of care. The kitchen needs to be right sized, because if it's not, it's all downhill. You have cramped spaces that are hard to clean, that get cluttered. So once again, it really starts with getting someone like Scopus or food service designer involved. The earlier, the better. Build that brand, get people excited about it. I'm working with a community at Charlotte, North Carolina right now. Doesn't even have a building yet. We're designing it, but they're needing depositors. They're needing leads. So in order for them to get excited, why not have cooking demos, whether it's virtually or actually a couple of weeks ago, I went to Johnson & Wales, my alma mater, and did a live cooking event for all the depositors. And they brought their friends. And you know what their friends wanted to do? Sign up right away, So Those are the things we want to start getting before this building is actually built.
So I love that. So let's just talk, I mean, to the extent that you could talk about this particular community because it's a real live example. So how many different venues, how many residents, ballpark, and how many venues will you plan?
Well, and once again, it is you have a couple of different markets that we have to look at. The middle market, the rental market, is coming into play hot right now. All
Yep.
right. And they may or may not be offering some type of food dollar or dining dollar program. So we got to look at, is multiple venues even sustainable in that scenario? No, it's not, but is one venue that can change throughout the day, or next month it's an Italian place, next month it's Asian, next month it's home cooking. Those are the types of things we want to look at. So if I'm in a very large, nonprofit CCRC with 500 IL residents, we're going to look at the spread of that campus to make sure that we're offering multiple venues throughout that campus. But once again, not competing internally. I'm not going to have a cheeseburger place here and a cheeseburger place here on campus. Why? Because now we're splitting that. We want to provide venues that are specific in that menu and that program all throughout the campus.
So have you seen anybody open up a restaurant and do this successfully where they're actually opening up to the public? I know it adds additional regulatory requirements, and as I've talked to a few operators about it as a concept, that sort of this big fear that you open it up to the public and the public's going to come in and eat, and the residents are not going to find places to sit. Do you have thoughts on that?
We do it all the time. This is not uncommon right now, especially for urban areas in that middle market where that lower level might be retail. And with that, we make sure that there's always a separate dining scenario so that the residents who are living there kind of always have those seats in play. There's also a community right here in my town of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where they don't have a dining program in terms of dollars or a spend down, but their restaurant is open to the public. They market it in the newspaper. It is called Hearth and Harrow, and it is a beautiful place where anybody can go and dine any day of the week. And it's just another way that community is opening itself up to say, hey, come see who we are, Well,
what I love about this is so cool. This has really got me excited, because what I love about this is being able to say my dining program is good enough to stand on its own, that I'm not going to, if you will, force you to pay a certain number of dollars for dining, and I'm going to earn your business at each meal, at each day. That is really cool.
Yep. And every community is different. Some communities it might work, and some communities it might not. It's all about that vision that they have and what product they're going to the market with.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would even argue, I'm going to push back just a little bit on that, because I actually think that as a concept, I recognize that there are going to be buildings where maybe the geographical location or the mix, but if you, as a concept, was that I want it to be good enough that if I had to sell every meal, by somebody putting a credit card in, that it would be good enough that people would want to do that. So, Leanne, my team says, I'd love to be able to dine in a senior living community in my area. And you're right. It's a no pressure way of allowing people to come in and check it out and see what it's really like.
The health and wellness, or wellness in general, and food are big factors. People are moving or not moving. And that same community that has that restaurant has an amazing wellness center, where the young and the old all merge together, and they have great statistics, and where a lot of the younger 55 plus generation have decided to move into that community based upon that service and based upon the relationships they're building on a daily basis, not living there. So kind of like Leanne said, it's a no pressure way of checking out the community, and if the food's good, can you go wrong, so
Yeah, who wouldn't want to live right next door to or in the same building of their favorite restaurant, right?
Right. I want a place. When I was in high school, when my grandmother would call me and say, "Hey, come have dinner with me," you just didn't want to do it, And nowadays, I want my mom to call me or my daughter and say, hey, can you meet me at Hearth and Harrow tonight? Or can you meet me at Foxtails? Or can you meet me at Luke's? Whatever that venue is, I'm going to know what that venue is. I'm going to know the style of service it is. I'm going to know how great the food is. And that she's already built that identity and is proud of me coming there. And that's what it's all about. It's just not about the residents anymore. It's the friends, it's the family, it's the grandkids. It's everything.
So one of the things that concerns me about all this is it sounds really expensive. You've got to have all these different venues, and that means different menus and more places. Can you talk to me about that?
Let's it starts small, and I tell every community that. And if a community is brand new and has multiple venues, or maybe has 20 communities, all right, let's talk about commissary kitchens and technology and how we can bulk produce food that's consistently all throughout the campus, all levels of care. Or once again, let's talk about a community that's trying to reposition from that formal dining room and build a couple of small venues. The menu's got to start small. All right. We can't go into this with those 4-page menus where we're offering everything. We got to give the staff the ability to adjust, be creative, create those seasonal, quarterly menus, etc. Keep them small and allow them to build on that, because we all know if you have a very large menu and you start taking away things, someone's going to come in and ask for it. And if it's not there anymore, they're going to be upset. However, if you start small and you allow things to build and give them more specials, give the staff more creativity to build things, it's going to be a much easier experience. And yes, you're right. It can be expensive, but that's where, we come into play, and we try to build the equipment and the spaces around the budget and the program.
Okay. So, one of the things that I think about a lot with dining is that, and I see this when in marketing materials for senior living communities, is they're sort of consistently offering not 5-star, but sort of 4-star dining experiences, right? And so I guess the first question is you're smiling, and so I know you got some thoughts on this. I'm gonna finish my thinking about this and kind of my question, and then I'm gonna let you dig in. But let's assume for a minute that you can do a 4-star experience. And I'm not sure that I can tell you for sure that I wouldn't want to eat 4-star every night of the week, because how do you ever do anything special? So I'm going to turn you loose.
Well, first off, I think whoever built websites for 90% of these communities and had that dining tab on there all took pictures and lingo from everybody else's website. Because they're all the same. They all offer 5-star experience. They offer great dining. But you know what? Most of them are stock photos. Most of them don't really talk to the venues. They talk about the dining rooms they can eat in. And that's where it kind of starts. People are, I'm checking. If my mom says, hey, we're looking at moving here, I'm checking out the website. I'm looking at the venues. I'm trying to find social media, anything that's going to talk about, these scenarios. And you don't want 4-star every night. Sometimes I just want a chili dog and French fries and watch the game on TV, and my dad is the same way. My mom's the same way, they don't eat big dinners, they don't need fancy 5-star every night. However, it is nice on the occasion to still have that experience. And that's where pop-ups come into play too. So maybe you're casual, but on Friday night, casual becomes pop-up because you only have one venue. So how can we learn how to rotate that? How can we learn how to mix in, work on food costs? So, these cycle menus, where today it's turkey, tomorrow's roast beef, tomorrow's whatever, we got to get out of that mindset nowadays. And we got to offer the cyclical quarterly aspects where those specials come into play.
Well, I think the other part of it that comes into play is that I'm vegetarian, right? So you've just described this menu that does absolutely nothing for me. What about, and my sense is there's a lot, there are a lot more people who are, having those kinds of things, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free.
Yep. All those are coming into play right now, and you have to offer them. There has to be the ability to be able to create those types of menus, because as my generation comes into play in that scenario, that is what we are going to want. My wife's a vegetarian. I'm probably, I don't even know what you want to call me, but I don't eat a whole lot of meat. I mean, I'm a 80-20 kind of guy, but I love to eat vegetarian. I love to eat ethnic foods. I want Indian. I want sushi. I want Ukrainian, Italian, Mexican. I want it all. And I think the younger generation also wants it all. Maybe not my grandmother, who was probably 93, who was, very simple, but, my parents, they're exposed to it now. And even the younger generation, even more exposed.
So what do you see? Actually, I want to maybe shift from sort of food and menus a little bit. Talk to me about technology and dining, robots, things that help. Just sort of riff for me a little bit on where you see technology making things better today, and where you think it's going in the future.
This is a great question. I think we have to start really approaching technology and consider it something that's going to help us. All right. Not only for data, there's still communities I walk into. I see people taking orders on a piece of paper. I see the amount of people that have come into dining room checked off with a pen, and they're counting it that way. Like, I just don't understand how we're not trying to capture data, because it all relates back to making sure we're not a revenue loser, that we are a profit center. So the more data we have, the better. Now, that's on that aspect. From a food delivery standpoint, robots are out there. A lot of communities have started to adapt the food runner robot. It is not to replace the server. We need servers. We need servers who build relationships with these residents. We need servers who create the show and the experience. However, if that server is spending all their time on this and then going over to a POS to type it in, and then having to go to the kitchen to pick up that food and then come back out, they're not spending time in the dining room. And the dining room is where that resident needs them the most, no matter the level of care. So if I can use a tablet now to take that order table side, not only am I eliminating some errors that might happen in an order process, but I'm also able to take care of more tables for less staff. Your CFOs are going to love that. The staff is going to love it because they're taking less steps. And now I have a robot who is going to take the food from point A, the kitchen, deliver it table side to me. I'm going to see it. I'm going to go over there and still put that on the table. So I think we really need to embrace technology. I think we need to embrace the fact that there takeout over the past 3 years, takeout. All right. I mean, I went to one community, there were 6 people on phones taking takeout orders. And I'm like, why is this not something that a resident can go on and pick themselves what they want, or not? Maybe there's the ability to have both phone and tablet, but allowing that technology to help us, that really is crucial.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, the concept of being able to order on a tablet or your phone, I really, really love. When I look at just the what I see in restaurants, it's kind of discouraging. We go to do Olive Garden occasionally, and I usually give up on their menu and order from a menu and a waitress, because it's just too clunky and cumbersome to work through the little thing. And I think of myself as being a pretty technology savvy person, but I can't hardly use the kiosk at McDonald's to order a cup of coffee. And so to me, it seems like there's room for improvement there.
There's a lot of room for improvement, and there's a lot of resident engagement platforms out there right now where they are improving it, and they are listening to the senior living industry, because they realize that there was also a big miss out there on that side. So I'm glad that the hospitality and restaurant industry is seeing some of the misses, i.e. branding, technology, food delivery, things like that, and bringing those into these environments.
Yeah. So Jack Cumming, who lives in a senior living community, also is part of our team, writes for us on a regular basis. He and his wife are big cruisers, and the cruise line they like the best. They get an electronic bracelet that they go on, and it basically controls everything. Their door, they order their meals with it. Are you seeing that at all in senior living? Is it coming?
Starting to not as rapidly as I think I'd like to see it. I think there's some hesitancy from a lot of communities right now based upon the age group that is in that community. However, and I know we've been saying it for at least 10 years now, the boomers are coming, the boomers want this. However, they're still not moving in as rapidly as we thought they were going to move in. And there's a lot of reasons why, and we need to capture that why, and we need to figure out how to solve that why.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I mean, the overall theme I'm hearing here is really, it's about creating better experiences for residents, and that dining is the is the place where most residents do most of their socialization. I mean, we've got these life enrichment programs, and they're really terrific, and I think there's opportunity. But at the end of the day, most of that socialization really happens in the dining environments, at least when it's done right. So,
yeah, I agree.
So, yeah. So with that, Matt, we are about out of time. How do people find you?
ScoposhG.com, and that's ScoposhG.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn. Let me know what you need. Let's have a conversation. I might not be the right fit for everybody, but ultimately I'm in this for one reason, and that's to better this industry in terms of food service, not only from a resident standpoint, but from a labor and staffing standpoint as well. If we don't have good people and we can't keep those people happy, it is going to be a struggle on the back of house aspects.
Yeah, I just think the dining creates such a great opportunity to really showcase and grow your occupancy. So, Matt, appreciate what you do, appreciate your passion, appreciate you joining us, and we will see you next week.